Hey guys, welcome back to more political chatter. Today we will be talking about this absolutely stunning new poll that we have from the state of Maine that just shows that Susan Collins is absolutely done for this time. But it even tells us more because just last night we had some information leak actually. It was a bad start to the campaign, but Janet Mills, the governor of Maine, sent out a tweet that announced her Senate bid and then deleted it 2 minutes later. I don't know what went on there, but we do know that essentially the governor of Maine, Janet Mills, is going to run for Senate against Susan Collins. But the thing is, we also have another Democrat in this race, a Democrat who has gotten national attention despite being pretty much a nobody, and that is Graham Platner. Graham Platner is a oyster farmer in the state of Maine. We'll see if I could find him here. He has had no political experience. He has never served in office before, and he has been able to get a huge following on social media. And it's not just social media. When you look at his rallies, when you look at his events, they are packed. He is starting a movement there in Maine, a working class sort of blue collar sort of democratic movement there. So what this poll shows is that when just asked Graham Platner or Susan Collins, who would you vote for? It is a tie, 38% for Platner, 38% for the incumbent Republican Susan Collins. Against Janet Mills, just asked who would you vote for, Janet Mills or Susan Collins, Mills wins by 5%. So on that initial ballot, what we call it, Janet Mills outperforms Graham Platner by 5%. However, remember, Graham Platner has never served in office, and many people still don't know who he is. So when you give voters a little biography about Graham Platner, which is what every voter will know by election day 2026 or by primary day 2026, when you say, when you tell the respondents that he is a Marine and Army veteran, oyster farmer, and working class Mainer running to take on the political establishment and the oligarchy, blah, 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 blue collar, ordinary people, giving Maine a real voice, blah, blah. But when you give Janet Mills a little biography, it says Maine's first female governor, known for steady, results-driven leadership. It's very fair. You know, this was sponsored by More Perfect Union, which I'm sure wants Graham Platner to win. But when you usually see these biography or informed ballot polls, which is what they're called, they're really heavily biased. You know, who they want to do better in a poll, they give them a great biography and then their opponent a poor biography. When you look at these biographies, they are very fair. Janet Mills's biography is also very positive, very fair. So when you look at the results after voters know, these respondents in this poll, after they read the biography of each candidate, look at how the race changes. Graham Platner takes a 14% lead over Susan Collins. That's 48% to 34%. And Janet Mills increases her lead from +5 to just +8. So after voters hear who each candidate is and what they stand for, Graham Platner does 14 points better than his initial ballot, Janet Mills just 3. What does this mean? It means that either candidate would be favored to beat Susan Collins, but it means that Graham Platner, when voters hear his message, would be far stronger. It also shows that voters already know who Janet Mills is. There's not much change there between her numbers. This will be, the numbers probably all the way through election day if these numbers are accurate. But Graham Platner, people don't know him. And the more they hear from him, the more they like him, which is exactly what I would expect. And Maine is quite an interesting state because they are, such a anti-establishment outsider sort of state, but they do have a Republican incumbent. You've got Susan Collins in Maine. She actually won in 2020. She won re-election on the same ballot Biden was on by 8 points when Biden also won by 8 points. She outperformed Donald Trump in the state of Maine by 16%. That's in 2020. But in 2026, will things be different? Because you've got, um, this is now a Trump midterm. And it's a midterm election, so it's going to be more higher propensity, more Democratic leaning voters turning out. And when you look at the state of Maine, there is something really odd going on in the state of Maine because Obama won the state or we could actually look to the second congressional district specifically. Remember, they split their votes by congressional district. In the presidential election in 2008, Obama won Maine's second district by 11 percentage points. 11%. He won every county in the state but one. 4 years later, Obama winning re-election, he won in Maine's second by 9. But when you look in 2016, just 4 years later, it went from Obama plus 9 to Trump plus 10. That is a 19-point swing to the right, one of the highest of any congressional district in the country. We could actually look at how each state changed here, and you could see Maine second district became 19 points more Republican from 2012 to 2016. So there's something going on in these anti-establishment outsider counties, more rural, more working class. There's something going on where they are abandoning Democrats, and we're seeing this across the country. Look at the most working class states in the country, the most blue collar states in the country: Maine, West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, the Rust Belt, and what do you know? These are all the states, Iowa, that trended the most towards Donald Trump in 2016, towards the Republicans in 2016, and has stayed with him ever since. So there has been a blue collar revolt in the state of Maine. I mean, just look at this. From 2012 to 2024, you could see the first district of Maine, which is more upper class, more urban, not as blue collar and working class as the second district. It has remained pretty much stagnant since 2012. Trump and the Republicans have gained 0.2%. There's basically been no change. But you go next door to the second district, and look at that. It has become 18 points more Republican. So Democrats have lost these types of voters, and that's really something. That's really it has been a failure for the Democratic Party. Furthermore, look at if we could get to it. Um, Sorry. Here we go. Look at the shift from 2020, or what am I looking at? 2012. No. I'm trying to get to. Oh, this is it. Look at the trend, even from 2020 to 2024. You see all of the, and Biden did poorly here in 2020. Harris did even worse. But you could see again these coastal first congressional district counties remaining stagnant, or even some becoming more Democratic. Every other county up here is becoming more Republican. So Graham Platner represents exactly what Democrats need to win back these blue collar, working class voters in especially Maine's second congressional district. Democrats have focused too long on winning the suburban voters, the types of voters that would live in the first congressional district. These former Republicans, these moderates, these social issue center voters, where the economy isn't even a concern in their life because they are fine financially. Those are the voters the Democrats have spent too long trying to win. That was the Liz Cheney strategy, trying to turn out suburban wine moms around Philadelphia. But in the process, we have lost everybody else in the state of Pennsylvania, everybody else in Ohio, in West Virginia. Why was West Virginia a strong Democratic state? During the 60s, even into the 70s, Johnson won it by 36, JFK won it, Hubert Humphrey won it by 9 in his landslide loss in 1968. Why was West Virginia the single most Democratic state in the country, and now is the most Republican state of the country? These are the questions we have to ask. It's because of the establishment Democrats, shifting their focus away from working class voters onto suburban, moderate voters, maybe former Republicans and independents. And that has been a failed strategy. We tried that in 26, or that was proven in 2016 when we lost. If Hillary Clinton had won the Rust Belt, or just the Blue Wall specifically, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, she would have won the election. If Biden won in 2020, but these margins were way below where they should have been and what was expected. And in 2024, that was shown again to the most extreme amount. So Maine is really important too when it comes to Democrats winning back control of the Senate in 2026, because this is my current forecast. And oh yeah, also, now my forecast where I have Maine being Platner plus 4.5 doesn't look so wild after all. I'm considering putting it as a likely state, to be honest, after this poll. I think he will do extremely well. And this poll proves that just that. When voters hear Graham Platner's message, I have no doubt that he's going to win by a lot. I'm predicting honestly over a lean margin right now into likely territory. So to win back control of the Senate, this is the current map. You've got Maine and North Carolina red, so it's 53-47. Democrats would have to flip North Carolina. They would have to flip Maine. They would have to flip, those should be easy. Then they would have to look to Texas. And finally, if they wanted a majority, 50-50 would be good, but Republicans would still have majority in this case because they have the VP Vance, the tie-breaking vote. They would have to look either, or honestly, Osborne might be a better bet in Nebraska, the independent, but it might be Alaska if Mary Peltola runs. So, quite an interesting scenario happening in the state of Maine. And Democrats, your best bet is going with Graham Platner. This is exactly what I've been saying this entire time since Graham Platner has been in, and it has been a blessing for the Democrats to pick or for Graham Platner to be in this race. As I posted yesterday, if Graham Platner was the leader of the Democratic Party, no election would be a contest. We would be winning. If he was the presidential nominee against like JD Vance, we would be winning like 45 out of 50 states. Okay. Like elections wouldn't be a contest in the vast majority of races. The Republican Party would crumble because they wouldn't win anything. And the Democratic Party would split into different wings, into a more moderate wing. The whole system would change because the Democrats would be so utterly dominant if someone like Graham Platner was the leader. So he is exactly what Democrats need. And all Democrats should get behind him. But again, voters already know who Janet Mills is. And they clearly do not, or I shouldn't say that they're not too fond of her because she is winning, but Susan Collins is a low bar. But clearly you can do better, much better than Janet Mills. Mills is winning by 8, Platner by 14 when you give voters a biography, which will be more accurate come election day in 2026. The biography sort of informed ballot scenario because voters will, see these commercials, they will read about them, they will see them on TV, they will see the debates if there are any, there probably will be. And they will become very familiar with whoever the Democratic nominee is, Graham Platner, Janet Mills, or even some underdog, someone else, which I doubt. So, the informed ballot will be more accurate come election day, and this is the ballot that shows Graham Platner in a far better position than Janet Mills right now, almost outpacing her by 2-to-1 margin. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't already. That really helps out. Drop a like to make sure this video does well in the algorithm so more people watch it, please. That helps out also. And I will see you all later. Thank you.